Yes, we're live. Let's wait for the music. Nate Jones, start dancing. You're on camera, Nate.
Not yet.
Yes, you are. What are you looking for? Nate Jones is looking for $1 million. He's 50 Facebook days. There we go, Jillian. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody. Good evening. My name is Mark Canna, and welcome to Fireside Chats. And before I introduce my guest for the evening, why we call it Fireside Chats, you've heard this before. We call it Fireside Chats because they were a series of AM radio broadcasts by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt from 1933 to 1944. The chats were meant to garner support for his policies, but in reality, a lot of people started to look at it as some type of source of hope and security because they were always upbeat. But here at AOSH, our fireside chats are meant to inspire. So we have people on who can actually tell you their stories you have not heard before, that we hope will inspire you. These are people who have met challenges. They can share their source of courage and discuss the newest advancements in their field of endeavor. So tonight's guest is someone I consider a friend. Yes. Yeah, I do. Yeah, well, okay. Maybe on a good day. Is my friend, the founder and CEO of Claire, Nate Jones. Now, here's the introduction. After reading the extensive research done in Finland about the benefits of xylitol, Dr. Lon Jones developed a xylitol nasal spray to treat his patients with persistent upper respiratory infections. He successfully treated his granddaughter's ear infections. And remember, in research, we do it in the lab, we do it on relatives, then we go to the animals, and then we do a clinical study. That's it. When I tell that to research groups, they always laugh a lot because it's so true. You go to family first, always. I've done it too. And he soon began dispensing the solution to other patients with ear, nose, and throat issues. His results were really surprising and astounding. So in 2000, Nathan Jones, Dr. Jones' son, founded Clear Incorporated to make nasal spray commercially available. Clear was started almost 23 years ago, and today their products are available everywhere. I'm not sure about Iran. I have to check on that on Iran. While the xylitol and dental hygiene have been in the conversation for decades, Clear has been a pioneering organization when it comes to nasal health and hygiene. Clear is making and selling oral and nasal hygiene products with xylitol that can, and of course, I feel this way. They should be used by everybody. I feel strongly about that. Prior to starting Claire, Nate Jones worked in the Gulf of Mexico doing underwater construction and commercial diving. He is also an avid pilot. He has a plane. He keeps promising me trips places, but they haven't yet materialized. Now remember this. We have to find out. Nate keeps saying, I'm going to fly Mark here, but he doesn't do it. Okay. So he's a avid pilot. He enjoys traveling. He does. He loves to travel. He loves reading historical books, especially on ancient civilizations, and traveling to the places that he has read about. And you are quite knowledgeable on places like Egypt and so on. I know that because we have talked many, many times, haven't we?
Egypt, Turkey, India, Bolivia, Peru. I love those ancient civilizations and the origins of humankind and the origins of human and their relationship to their whoever their perceived God is.
And also how their culture evolved. And in my situation, I love how their diet evolves and how that changed their microbiome. And because, again, we have the Neolithic Revolution, and of course, we had the Industrial Revolution in diet, and then we have now the fast food revolution. So a lot have changed. And when it changes our microbiome and changes our evolution, which is fascinating because we have talked about that so many times. But first of all, let's get back to our key questions here at Fireside. What's your motivation? What gets you up every morning?
My kids.
Besides
I gotta
your
get to
kids,
school.
yeah.
I gotta get them to school. I cook them some brekkie.
Yeah.
No, what keeps me going is that, and I've had people that have worked for Clear who, even after they leave and go work somewhere else, they come back and say, Clear, it's the one place where they've worked in their life where you're actually trying to help people live healthier, where you're trying to help people save money. It's a win-win for everybody. You can go out to you can get a car, you know, you get a car, but if you spend the money on a car, you're not saving money. You get a car. That's an expense. One of our logos and our slogans, I should say, is that if we aren't saving you money when you use our products, then stop using them.
And by the way, I've been to, like, last year. I went to your employee picnic. I met a lot of your employees, and they're all people who are very dedicated. And I enjoyed that. By the way, I have to tell you, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
You asked me about that if I would go with you, and I
you weren't
went.
really
And
right on the big rides, though.
I did all the big rides. I did Cannibal with you. What are you talking about? Come on. We did all the big rides. Now, you've been sponsoring AOSH since, like, the beginning. Why did you get involved with AOSH?
Because even before AOSH was founded, we as a company and as a our goals is to understand and how not just the nasal microbiome but the oral microbiome affects that oral systemic connection. And AOSH, it's the American Academy of Oral Systemic Health. Did I say that right? American AOSH? Yeah.
Yeah, American Academy for Oral and Systemic Health.
Yeah. I wish it had actually said for oral, nasal, and systemic health.
Well, the nasal that is a gateway microbiome. We've talked about that a
We
lot.
understand that, but AOSH doesn't include that. But we understood that the mouth and the nose are the two major gateway microbiomes, and we've understood that for 22, 20, going on 23 years now.
Yeah.
Well, as
We
long
can't
as
do
you're
much.
keeping those clean, you're going to be a healthier person.
You're absolutely correct. And of course, those both, well, mostly the oral microbiome affects the placental microbiome, which is the other key gateway microbiome. And everyone who knows me, they know I talk about the microbiomes and gateway microbiomes. And I absolutely love it. I mean, I have this stuff for breakfast. How do you balance your life? How do you balance having, you got 2 daughters, you have a big company to run, you travel a lot, and you have a business to run?
And just do it.
Yeah, I know you
You
do.
got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, you do. You're good at it too. I mean, you're very, very good at it.
So the thing is that you have to understand that first priority is obviously my children. One of the reasons why I fly my own plane is because it allows me to be able to go places and do what I need to do, but yet return home faster. It's convenience. It's returning home quicker because I want to make sure that I'm spending as much quality time with my kids as I possibly can, because in another 5, 6, 7 years, they're not going to want to spend time with me.
I know. No, they will. They will.
I hope.
They will. Come on. When
we
we went to Rome, my youngest son met us down there, right? And Keith, you know Keith well. Actually, Nate knows my kids pretty well.
I've never met
Ryan. Huh?
I'm
sorry?
met daughters. It's like you're shielding me from them.
No, you've met Michelle. I think you met Michelle. You haven't met Andrea.
Haven't met Michelle either. Where did I meet Michelle?
But you're right, guys. People, please shield your children from Nate. I'm sorry. We're just having fun. We can have fun tonight because, after all, Nate is an old friend. Tell me about your involvement in AOSH, going way back to, like, you went to the Cleveland Clinic meeting too, didn't you?
I did go to that one. I've been to a lot of them. I've tried to attend most of them. I've been to so many of them that I can't really tell which ones I have and haven't been to.
I think you've been to every one of them.
No, I'm sure I've missed one or two.
I've seen you almost every time. And you know what? We have to tell you all, we really tell you, we all really appreciate what you've done with your work for people, for working with xylitol, and of course, helping with AOSH and everything. I mean, that's something that we can say now because this is, we're having a friendly chat and we can absolutely come out and say, hey, this is something we all appreciate. And I do. But we talked about earlier about social media and the problem we have with social media. Not that we've been shadow banned any that I know of.
I think the idea of hygiene on social media has been shadow banned since the beginning of social media. You know, we as a company, you know, we're a hygiene products company. We sell products that are meant for nasal and oral hygiene. And we have spent literally millions and millions of dollars trying to engage audiences on social media. And, you know, people come in and like, you got to understand these shoes that I just took a picture of, 1 million people watch this. But the problem is that the shoes are cute. But how many times do you see something go viral about someone brushing their teeth, you know, or washing their nose or taking a shower? You know, any of hygiene is not something that is socially acceptable to share online. And
That's
we've tried to figure a way to do that, and we spent a lot of money trying to figure that out, and we haven't figured it out.
Well, I know you told me about a contest you have going on right now.
Yeah, we have a contest on social media because we're trying to find ways to make social media work. But we have a contest right now. You know, if you go to our social media sites, you'll see links to it. But it's actually a contest that we're having that's available for dental hygienists and dental offices. That if they take a video of how they are explaining dental hygiene prevention and the use of xylitol, they don't even have to mention our products. They just have to mention how they're utilizing xylitol in their preventative hygiene protocols to their patients. And if they can do that, they have a chance to win $4,000. They have a chance to win half of their tuition to O'Hare Academy or O'Hare University, so they can further their education. Or I think it's a year's worth of our products to the third prize winner.
That sounds very worthwhile. So, hopefully, we have some hygienists listening, and if you're not, please tune in to us later. And I'm not just saying this, but I'm that is really a good prize, and you all should be anyway using xylitol and your prebiotics and your probiotics. Why don't you come out and just show how you do it? Share it with everybody. That's what we need to do. The whole idea of fireside chats and everything else is get this information out to everyone. So please help us out with this. Share this website, share this podcast. Now, that's been a problem we talked about because in social media, people want to do things that are kind of fun and frivolous. But this is something you can make some money. So try to do this. Now we talked about xylitol all the time. I know I lecture on it all the time because I think it's one of the most important prebiotics. We've explained evolutionary wise why xylitol is important even to our mitochondria, how our mitochondria utilize it as a first step in the Krebs cycle. Humans, mice, and rats, we have this history of evolving together in sub-Saharan Africa, which we proved with our nasal microbiome studies, which was fascinating. Xylitol lowers your LDLs, helps you reduce weight, helps prevent the rate of diabetes and obesity, inhibits all these pathogens. And even the American Heart Association says preserve your nitrate reducing bacteria, use mouth rinses that don't kill the good bacteria. Why is it that we have all these recommendations to use antimicrobials and antibiotics? Haven't we learned a lot about what antibiotics have done to our gut?
No, we haven't. I mean, you know, is there anything else to say? But no, we haven't. I wish we had. You know, I wish that people would utilize non-hexose sugars more often. You know, more hygiene solutions rather than antibiotics, rather than broad spectrum antimicrobials.
Now, we talked about hygiene solutions before, and you guys got started a long time ago. And when you got started, was anyone else making any type of products that were just besides sailing for the nose?
Not that I'm aware of. And, and even then, it was shortly after we got started that they even really got into neti pots. And but that's one of the things that I'm excited about is that 22 years ago when we started the company, it was all saline sprays. Shortly after that, you had one of our competitors, a company called Neilmed, who got on Oprah, and Oprah just blew it out. Everybody was buying it. That doesn't mean they were using it, but what they were doing was using a neti pot, a bottle that actually rinses out their nose. And what that does is it actually cleans out the entire protective layer of mucus, which you want. You don't want to wash it all out. But it was just exciting to see that happening. But now, in the last 3 years since COVID, one of the things that I'm actually excited about is you have companies coming out that are making nasal sprays with iota-carrageenan, and you have them coming out making them with nitric oxide. You have studies being done on using baby shampoo. You have all of these different products that are being used, and there's even studies on using iodine, which the iodine one, I'm little concerned about it. If you have a upper respiratory illness, maybe use the iodine, okay? Because it's kind of a scorched earth policy. And what we've learned through the history of medicine is that anytime you overuse antibiotics and you kill a resident microbiome in your gut or in your mouth, you're opening yourself up to a lot of other issues.
Absolutely correct. And I mean, you're preaching to the choir. All of our listeners, I know, are very cognizant of the fact that you have to allow your evolved microbiome to be present. And when you try to remove that, you actually remove all your protective layers. 99% of our bacteria are protective. They're commensals. They don't do us any damage. They compete with the pathogens. And it's always been a major concern. And we went through this actually during COVID, because during COVID, right, we all started wearing masks. We started using hand sanitizers all the time. People were spraying disinfectants in the air. They go all over the place. And we got a little picture there down there of someone showing a shower head and a nose. Yeah, go in the shower. Do not use a shower in Brazil to clean out your nose, okay, or in Mexico. No, just a little joke there. So it's really important that we are very cognizant of what we evolved with. And we have a question there. Oh, there's a question about the contest. And yeah, definitely. How did they find out about the contest, Nate?
I would go to our social media channels, and it'll be on there. Go to
Just go to your website.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. It popped up there, Instagram page right there. So go to that. There's a question about a 3-year-old. And I have to tell you personally, what I do, I always talk about utilizing, of course, a prebiotic. And then I also use a probiotic, though. When I have had wonderful success using the Streptococcus salivarius. And the research on Strep salivarius goes way back decades to Stan Schulman's research at Children's Hospital in Chicago, showing that kids who used that had the right strep had far fewer Strep pyogenes infections. But there's other bacteria involved with that. So again, using prebiotics, the xylitol, of course, the xylitol nasal spray. There's xylitol, candies, the mints, right?
Yeah.
Xylitol gum, xylitol mouthwash, and xylitol toothpaste. I mean, Clear basically has all the xylitol products. Not quite all of them. We've talked about a few in the future that we're not going to talk about yet tonight, but we pretty much recommend xylitol. It's a wonderful prebiotic, and the research backs that up, right? Right, Nate?
Oh, no, absolutely.
I don't care if you read it in the ENT literature. When I give lectures on it, I show many many publications published in otorhinolaryngology articles in the journals, and it's really a fascinating how much research has been done on it.
And
And
hang on, I want to go in here, and you're going to have to excuse me. I think I told you I just had LASIK done on this eye. So
mhm.
anything on this side of my screen, which is where the questions are, I have to turn my head and read. But Jeannie Pressier, she's personally okay there. No, so the research behind using xylitol long term has people have been using xylitol for over 50 years. And first of
Yes.
all, it's natural. And if you go back a couple of hundred years, it was probably the number one carbohydrate, not even a carbohydrate, the number one sugar that people consumed. Okay. Until we started actually refining 6-carbon sugars, we probably ate as much of xylitol as we did of anything else. Am I right, Mark?
Well, the other thing about xylitol is naturally present in many foods. For instance, strawberries actually have 5 to 6 times more xylitol in them than do vitamin C, which is always fascinating to people. They always think, well, I get all the benefit from my ascorbic acid, but in reality, L-ascorbate breaks down into xylitol and D-xylose, and our mitochondria utilize it. Now, that is an evolutionary question that occurred as we evolved in the sub-Saharan belt during a great climate change from 150,000 years ago to 200,000 years ago. But that's a long story. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, humans and mice and rats, we do very well with xylitol. And you were at the Phoenix meeting, right? The Collaboration Cures.
Yes, I was there.
Was it a good time?
I had a great time. And I went into a couple of lectures, and, they were interesting. I watched you. I'm trying to remember who the other ones were that I went to. If you said their name, I'd remember them. I'm not waiting to get CE credit, so I'm not taking as good a notes as I probably should. I just look at the ones that are interesting and go in there and talk to them. So
Yeah, there's a lot of good things to learn. We have always exciting good speakers. So Nate, what is new in nasal hygiene?
well, I mean, I already touched on it a minute ago, but the thing that really excites me about it is that, for 20 years, it's been xylitol, us, and saline in nasal hygiene. And that's really the only thing that's been out there. And in the last couple of years, you've had all of these other products that have come out, and these research studies have come out using, like I said, iodocarrageenan, which is a seaweed extract that helps create a barrier that blocks bacterial. Well, they haven't done the studies on bacterial, but it blocks viral adhesion. The study where we first realized that xylitol blocked SARS-CoV-2 was a study where they were actually looking at how iodocarrageenan blocked SARS-CoV-2, and they used xylitol as a control. And it turned out that the xylitol actually worked better than the iodocarrageenan to block the adhesion of SARS-CoV-2 to human tissue.
Yeah, we found that too at Northwestern when we did the research, which we did the BioCryo lab and some very famous researchers. And of course, they did the research just to find out the effects and how it works. And you've seen the beautiful images we got of how the xylitol, because it's a decoy target for SARS-CoV-2, like it is the other coronaviruses. It looks too much like D-xylose. Oh, Candace, I use Clear daily. I share with all my patients. Good for you, Candace.
Thank you.
It's a great decoy target, and it really prevents blocks it for a good period of time. And it's kind of sad that it took a little bit of time to get the government convinced of any benefits of nasal hygiene. But we'll get back to that later.
Whoa, back up. You said it took a minute to get the government convinced?
No, I said I was being facetious. I was being sarcastic like you are all the time.
Oh, okay.
No, Nate's a master of sarcasm, so be careful. Yeah, be careful. So we'll get back to the federal issue a little bit later, though. But like I said before, we went to Rome, and we were really surprised. And I ran into some old friends or some great researchers, and we all were lamenting. And one of them said to me, he says, "Mark, I'm retiring. I'm done. Yeah, I'm going to one more big meeting." I'm going like, really? I'm going to really miss you. But what's going on here? By the way, no one's talking about the important issues. No one's talking about the microbiome. They were talking about fluoride, 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 and fluoride, which really bothers me because we really know that it's really prebiotics and probiotics we should be talking about, getting the back to a normal microbiome. And one of the things I did, Nate, and I think I mentioned this to you, is I did the cardio diagnostics
Was
where
that
they
the thing you
actually
were
test.
wearing on your arm the whole time and complaining about
No, I did CGM. I did that
every time
too.
you ate anything, it buzzed in your, I don't
No, it
know.
doesn't buzz. You just go ahead and scan it. I mean, everyone out there who's done a CGM, raise your hand. Oh, there's a lot of hands going up. I see all these hands going up over there. See all the hands? Yeah, lots of hands going up. So I did a CGM and to kind of monitor what was driving my blood sugar crazy. And I found some very interesting things. Yes, we need to be more cognizant of everything we eat. That's for sure. But it's not what you think. It's not what you think. Sometimes things you just eat every day and you think that's not so bad would actually greatly increase your blood sugar. That's
How,
a topic for another
I just
day.
want to know, how does beer affect your blood sugar?
Oh, actually, they all are different. A light ale or a light lager barely does anything. Even an IPA that is not a hazy, you do a hazy IPA, it's like eating a candy bar. I know, it's
Good
really
thing I
funny.
don't drink beer.
Well, you drink wine, and some wines have the same effect. I mean, obviously, a red wine will be less. Oh, there's a question here. Hope for health. My grandson had RSV right now. Would the clear nasal spray work to prevent RSV? Well, if
Well,
they,
I can't say that it would work to prevent anything because that would be making a drug claim. But if you go to our webpage at clear.xlear.com, I noticed you had a C in there. There's not a C in our company name. / science, I want to say. There's actually a study that we did that was done where we looked at SARS-CoV-2, H1N1, and RSV, and it showed that xylitol and erythritol and even sorbitol, any one of those three sugar alcohols, one being a 6, one being a 5, one being a 4 carbon sugar, all of them block SARS-CoV-2. The xylitol actually worked really well at blocking RSV, and the erythritol actually worked better at blocking H1N1.
so it means it's better at prevention.
I'm not allowed to say that.
No, he's not, but it would be better at prevention and preventing the spread. And it's kind of sad that we're not allowed, even though the research will back that up. We're just simply not allowed to say things. Going back to that, one of the things I want to do one of these days is I also did the cardio diagnostics, and no, that's not the CGM, continuous glucose monitor. It looks for 3 epigenetic biomarkers and 5 SNPs, and they use AI. It's extremely accurate at predicting future cardiovascular events. So I am stoked to get back my results because one day, Nate, I want to do a study. Anyone out there who wants to help me do the study, I want to take a group of people, do their cardio diagnostics, see who is at risk for cardiovascular disease, put them on a year's worth of xylitol dietary supplementation, check them again. Because I deep down inside feel there's going to be a big benefit. We're going to have some transformation that occurs because all these things are epigenetic. Notice everything is an epigenetic biomarker.
Well, I think that anything that you do to reduce your 6 carbon, your hexose sugar intake is going to help with a myriad of diseases, not just cancer, not just heart disease, but a number of them.
Diabetes, obesity, all that stuff.
All
All
of
the
them.
things,
I
all
mean,
the things that xylitol has been shown to be beneficial for.
so I just want to point out that there was a book that I just read because of the research that you're doing with xylitol and cancer, that I went and read called, give me a minute and I'll remember it. But it was
I've read that book.
It
I've read
was
that one.
Otto Warburg.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it was called, I can't remember it, but it was about Otto Warburg and all of the research that he did years ago, like 100 years ago, where he showed that sugars are what was causing the majority of this cancer that was coming on, even in Europe. And his research was so good that you're talking about a Jewish person who was gay, who lived in Berlin all through World War II. And the Nazis protected him. They did not do anything because they understood the value of the research that he was doing.
He was an amazing character. He was also Iron Cross winner in World War I.
Yeah.
He was a great researcher. And in the 30s and the 50s, he published a lot. And everyone knows about the Warburg effect with cancer cells, how they switch your metabolism. And by the way, at the AOSH meeting coming up, Collaboration Cures, we'll have Angela Poff, who's a very famous researcher on it. And last year in Phoenix, we had none other than Thomas Seyfried.
Last year or this year?
Well, it was this year.
2 months ago.
We haven't. Okay. In 2 more weeks, it'll be last year. Okay. Give me 2 weeks. So I'm thinking 2023 right now. I've been working on our 2023 meetings. Okay. We know that prebiotics and probiotics are really part of the future for us. I mean, absolutely for all disease prevention. So the really meaty stuff of tonight, tell us about the issues you've had with our lovely government.
Our great and glorious 3-letter agencies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, what do you mean? What kind of
hold back. Don't say anything. Yeah, just hold back.
What kind of issues? I mean, they're probably watching and recording, and not that I care that much. No, I mean, so the issues we're having with the government is we have worked within the guidelines of what our government has given us, and this is a story of xylitol, because people understand. I mean, especially the people listening to this conversation, mostly are dental professionals. They understand the story of xylitol. There are thousands of research studies showing that xylitol works. Anybody that really understands it or reads it understands, you know what? You take away the 6 carbon sugars, the bacteria don't have anything to eat. It's pretty a simple conversation. But yet we, as a company, we cannot go out there and say xylitol prevents tooth decay. Okay, we can't say that because that's a drug claim. Okay, and when we started Clear 22 years ago, my dad, who is a physician, was using this nasal spray with xylitol and washing out the nose for the simple reason that he was trying to prevent ear infections in these babies, because he understood 22 years ago that when you give antibiotics to kids, especially young kids, you're going to mess with their gut microbiome, with their oral microbiome. You're going to mess with all of that, and you have long-term ramifications from that. Okay, he understood that. He understood that. In fact, he understood that when I was a kid in the 70s. Okay, because he wouldn't give us antibiotics unless we were deathly ill, laying on the ground moaning, and even then I think he didn't give us anything. He just told us to man up. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, hopefully he's not watching right now. He's going to come on and be like, yay. But anyway,
I see you out there.
The point of it is we understood that, what we wanted to do was to gosh, I lose off on the stream of I don't want to get too far from the topic. What was the question again? Because I don't want to go too far from what the question was.
We were talking about your lovely affairs we're having with
I don't want to get too far
our regulatory bodies. What's going on recently now?
Well, so this is what it comes to, and I gotta keep my focus on this, right? There's so many tangents off of this topic that it's ridiculous.
No way.
I know. But so this is 20 or 22 years ago. Within a year of us starting the company, we got a letter from the FTC saying, hey, you can't go out there and say that washing your nose prevents ear infections. And so we called up the FTC and we're like, hey, this is what it does. This doctor here, they've been using it, and common sense would tell you this. No, you can't say that. You can say that it blocks bacterial adhesion because you have a published studies showing that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as soon as we understood the ground rules, we went on and we changed what we were doing and we followed those ground rules. We went out and we educated people and said, xylitol blocks the adhesion of strep pneumo, H-flu, MCAT, staph.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Those are the common pathogens in your upper airway. Okay. Rather than just using saline to physically wash something out of your nose, why don't you use something with xylitol that blocks adhesion and washes your nose? So we did that for 20 years. Then this, in 2020, when everything went crazy and any semblance of sanity left the planet, we were sitting there in early 2020, and we started getting calls from doctors, pulmonologists, that were saying, hey, we're using your nasal spray and it seems to be helping. Do you have any reason why this would be? And we're like, I don't know. Well, maybe we should do some studies. And so we actually sent our nasal spray up to a lab at Utah State University, which is one of the best virology labs in the country. And we had them test it. And it turns out that our nasal spray just annihilates this COVID virus, this SARS-CoV-2. Okay. And I mean, it annihilates it to the same magnitude as a 70% solution of alcohol. And we were like, it's the xylitol. It's got to be the xylitol. What else is in there? But when we actually went back and retested it and broke it down into the individual components, what we found out is that the xylitol had no effect on killing or destroying the virus. What we found out was that the grapefruit seed extract that we used as a preservative at 0.2% destroyed this virus as effectively as a 70% solution of alcohol.
Isn't that just amazing? Because it's such a natural preservative. You have that in your tooth gel for kids.
Yeah. But we sent this information into the government, and they're like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And we started talking to the government, to the FDA, and saying, hey, we would like to move forward. And they said, well, you have to classify it as a drug. And we're like, well, what do we have to do that? And so then we started jumping through these hoops. And then they started asking these questions like, what time of day were the grapefruits harvested? And we just sat there and said, what does it matter what time of day were the grapefruit harvested? What field were they harvested from? And at that point, we realized they were just sending us on a wild goose chase to, chase our own tails. And they really didn't care about finding a solution that wasn't a big pharma or a vaccine solution. Then the study that was done at University of Tennessee came out, where they were looking at iota carrageenan and showing how xylitol blocked adhesion. Mm-hmm. We sent that into the government, and they came back and said, no, you can't use that study. That study doesn't count because it's done on barrel kidney tissue. Well, okay, that's the industry standard. No.
Is it industry standard, by the way? Vero 76 immortalized cells, because the ACE2 receptors, that's what we use at Northwestern too.
Don't worry. If you go through the government, if you're a big pharma company, it works. If you're not, that doesn't matter. It doesn't work. So we actually went and redid these studies at adhesion, looking at adhesion using human airway tissue. And when that study came out and we looked at it, then the government came back and said, no, you still can't use that one. Well, why not? And they won't give us a reason. We don't like it. That was their answer. We don't like it. And so we just continued talking about it, and they sued us. So, and it'll be years before this, I mean, the government doesn't want this going to a trial. They know they're going to lose. Mm-hmm. They have zero studies showing that our science is invalid. They haven't yet produced an expert that's willing to come up and say, washing your nose isn't going to help. I mean, the CDC on their webpage, up until a couple of weeks ago, they actually had that if you have a respiratory coronavirus infection, the best way to treat it, nasal irrigation, washing your nose.
Yep.
And as soon
And
as we
they've been telling us to wash our hands.
Yeah, but as soon as we pointed that out to the FTC, it was probably a month later that was gone from the CDC's webpage.
Yeah, no more washing your hands. You don't need to do that anymore because you might be washing your hands and putting your clean finger up your nose, and that
Oh,
would be inappropriate because then
it's
you're cleaning your nose with a clean finger. I mean, God forbid people do that.
I think it's just frustrating that our public health officials are so bought into the pharma
Yeah,
paradigm
I know.
that they can't think about hygiene solutions because I've talked with you about this book, the Pandemic Century. It was written by Mark Holing. I can't remember his last name, but it's called Pandemic Century: 100 Years of Panic and Hubris and whatever. But this is a book that I think that everybody in public health should read because it's so simple. Because from the Spanish flu to the parrot flu to AIDS to Legionnaire's disease, every single one of these epidemics that we've had, which we've had one roughly every 10 years, every single one we've had, how many of those do you think were solved by vaccines? Zero. How many of them do you think were solved by big pharma? Zero. But yet when this one came around, everything was focused on hold everything until we have a vaccine from big pharma. Every single other one was solved through hygiene and sanitation, which hygiene is a personal thing. I practice hygiene. I brush my teeth. I take a shower. I comb my, God dang it, I comb my hair, whatever hair I have left.
You got all three of them looking straight.
Hygiene and sanitation is on a communal level, on a community level. And
name of the book again, The Pandemic Century.
Better. How's this? No, it's backwards.
No, they look at it. I see it perfectly straight.
There you go.
Going backwards to you.
This is my Bible. It's sitting on my desk right next to my computer. Okay. And I mean, there's two books that I really think that everybody in public health should read. That's one of them. And the other one is.
I'm just going to grab my book right now.
No, but it's called Pharma. Oh, hey, guess what? Right there. That is the one. Ravenous.
Ravenous.
Story. Is the one on Otto Warburg and cancer.
Yeah.
Okay, but the other one, it's called Pharma, and it's an interesting book because it talks about the opioid crisis. And I mean, this is before COVID, but it talks about the opioid crisis and how our government agencies were bought and paid for by Purdue and the Sackler family. And the thing that it points out that I thought was really interesting was that you can go back, and the Sackler family, the ones that owned Purdue, they originally made their money in advertising to physicians. And the way they would do that is they would create journals, medical journals.
Oh, I know. We all know. Yeah.
Studies and publish the studies that were made up to support whatever drug they were trying to push. And just the crazy part of that is this is a book that came out prior to 2020, but I'm going to give you one guess as to who that Sackler family marketing company's biggest customer was. Who was their biggest client?
Tell us. We're all waiting to hear.
No, it was Pfizer.
Yeah.
It was Pfizer. And so you have this book that's published, and everybody understands how they utilized the bought and paid for system to push opioids. And now we have other companies that learn from the masters, and they're doing the same thing.
It's kind of really sad because we've talked about before the idea of hygiene and how hygiene has been converted into the concept of killing everything and scrubbing yourself down with your whole body down with antiseptics and antimicrobials, or your nose, or taking antimicrobials in your mouth and then your gut. We haven't learned this terrible lesson that you cannot kill what you evolved with. And the antimicrobial mouth rinses have produced things like gluten sensitivity, increased weight gain. They kill the nitrate reducing bacteria, would have higher blood pressure, increased rates of cancer. And we have got to be doing a better job of educating everyone on the term hygiene. We really should be going back to the more natural basis or natural state of health. And we evolve with these bacteria. And that's the beautiful thing about xylitol, right?
I think that's one of the many beautiful things.
Yeah, xylitol tends to inhibit the pathogens and leave the good bacteria alone. They can inhibit them some, but not anywhere near as much as the pathogens. So the end all net effect is you really cut back on the growth of the pathogens. And we talk about probiotics too, don't we? A lot, Nate.
All the time. In fact, as you know, when my daughters were born, I should yell at them and have them come in here just so you can say
Oh,
hi, because
great.
they're 12 and going on 10 now. But my 10-year-old has never been sick a day in her life, and my 12-year-old she's been sick a couple of times, but maybe 3 or 4 times in her life for a total of maybe 12 days. And I think that there's 4 things that I think I can attribute that to. And one is, I don't cut off their source of candy. They eat candy. They eat everything all the other kids eat. But we don't have sugar in our house. We utilize a blend of xylitol and erythritol. We make, blueberry pies. We make pumpkin pies. We make all of these things. They have pumpkin. There's 6 carbon sugars in there. We're utilizing blueberries. There's 6 carbon sugars in there. Yes, xylitol is considered a prebiotic.
Yes,
but,
it is.
We cook with this, and I don't know that, and I would actually like to see a study done on this, but I don't think that you have to cut out all of your 6 carbon sugars. I think that someplace in there's going to be a balance where if you're utilizing non-hexose sugars and 6 carbon sugars and sugar alcohols, that you're not going to be as sick.
I agree with you. I think a lot of it has to do with balance. Obviously, there's been studies showing that if you have way too much sucrose, you can overwhelm your xylitol. But that's because they had the sucrose at home. You've done a really good job cooking well for your kids. I've eaten at your house, so I know what you do. And I'm not just saying that. I've had meals there with Nate and the family, and cooking healthy is one of the things I like to do with my kids too.
Well,
But
see,
I didn't over 20 years ago because I didn't know to.
Well, see, I forgot to tell you, that was the first thing. The second thing, they have utilized xylitol, toothpaste, mouthwash, chewing gum. They can chew all the xylitol gum they want. They have it. I put it in their lunchbox, everything. The other thing that they do, when they were kids, as you know, this is, 13 years ago, we actually came out with a dental probiotic. And we had it out there, and I think it just came out before its time. I think it was not ready. The people weren't ready for it. People looked at it and like, what is this? Because we didn't sell it. We sold maybe in 3 years, we sold like 4,000 units, which, we had 30,000 something units made. And so it really didn't work. But my kids, they ate that, and it was like a little pixie stick. And
I remember that very well.
Probiotics. It was great flavored. There was a whole bunch of vitamin. There was vitamin C. There, non-acidic vitamin C,
vitamin D in there. Yeah, D3.
A lot of this. Yeah. And after they brushed their teeth at night, I would just, while I was reading to them to go to bed, I would just have them eat this pixie stick of candy because it was xylitol, probiotics. It was, all of this stuff.
Yeah, anyway, the kids loved that. It was a very popular probiotic.
Yeah, my kids loved it. If I could get one of them to come in here and tell you, in fact, hang on, Natalie, come here. Natalie's right here. Did you like the little candy we used to give you?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay,
Natalie.
Go practice it. No.
Anyway, are they going with their piano lesson? Come on.
Her piano lesson's over.
Yeah.
But anyways, so it was the fact that they utilized that, and I don't want to say every night, but most of the nights when they're here with me, I actually take a yogurt, and I have to use Yoplait because that's the one they like. But I actually take the Yoplait and I put 2 or 3 capsules of other probiotics into it, and that's their dessert.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we have to restore our stupid microbiomes. Unfortunately, when you look at other cultures and ancient cultures and developing traditional cultures or traditional cultures before they developed, um, they had a lot better gut microbiome. All the research has shown that with Hudson tribe and everyone else, we're missing a lot of our good bacteria and prebiotics. And yes, xylitol is a prebiotic. Remember, the new definition of prebiotic is anything that is beneficial to the good bacteria. So, a reason it's a prebiotic is because in the past they thought only of the gut and they thought of fiber. But in reality, you should have prebiotics for the skin, for the nose. You're not going to stick a fiber up your nose. I mean, you could. I mean, it depends on the fiber. I mean, I
We
can I
stick
can
we stick
see
xylitol.
rhubarb going up the nose. I mean, that's the fiber, but also pulmonary, and of course, the whole body's full of bacteria. And there's a lot of bacteria that are intracellular. So, and that's a beautiful thing about xylitol is ubiquitous. That's in everything. We mentioned already strawberries, right? It's in blueberries, cauliflowers, plums, many plants. Oats are high in xylitol. Doesn't it really get to you when someone says xylitol is an artificial sweetener?
Well, I hate it, but people think that anything that isn't sugar, and we originally were selling our products in the natural retailers like the Whole Foods and the Sprouts and the
Hmm.
Fresh Time, and they would come in and say, "Well, isn't this a natural? Isn't this an artificial sweetener?" We're like, "No, it's more natural, as natural or more natural than the organic cane sugar you're selling, and it's way better for you." Because the
Hmm.
bacteria in your mouth that are causing inflammation, that are causing caries, that are causing all of these systemic diseases, they don't give
Periodontal disease.
they don't give a crap if it's organic sugar or if it's cane sugar or if it's refined CNH sugar.
Yeah, it's
They're
no
going to make
SEMA. The
that the same way, and it's going to be right in your mouth, making inflammation, causing cavities, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, SEMA. The thing with xylitol, it's a prebiotic because it inhibits the adhesion of a lot of the pathogens. For instance, Porphyromonas gingivalis, Fusobacterium nucleatum, they're inhibited by it. Their metabolism is upset too. The same thing as you find with cancer cells, because a lot of the pathogens will try to utilize xylitol for energy and they cannot. They're not human cells. Human cells, our mitochondria have actually evolved, and our mitochondria are capable of utilizing xylitol as an energy source. So humans, mice, and rats, we all evolve together to utilize xylitol heavily because of the certain types of fibers that were present in tubers going back about 150,000 years ago. So yes, xylitol is a prebiotic. It doesn't grossly kill bacteria, it inhibits them. And because you inhibit the pathogens, the probiotics have a much greater chance to overwhelm them. You're giving them a benefit on the battlefield. And Nate knows this, and I know this, and a lot of us. It's your whole microbiome is a continuous battlefield where we're trying hard to have our good bacteria overwhelm the pathogens. And the pathogens produce some metabolites that often cause things like cancer and atherosclerosis and everything else too. And increase your cholesterol levels, which is really funny. That's another really funny thing. I love reading those original studies on cholesterol levels and xylitol, which I think is something we can't talk about much because then it would be a drug, right, Nate?
I'm not talking about it.
No, you cannot talk about it, my friend. You gotta let that one go for sure. So we mentioned there's a lot of research on it, and yeah, thank you, Seema. So there's a lot of research on it going way back. We have the great studies of KK Makanan, and I have to thank you very much because I got to meet KK, Dr.
It's not
Makanan.
KK, it's Calco.
Oh,
Calco.
I know it's Calco, but everyone says KK for his initials. So Calco, I got to meet him and his wife. Thank you so much for letting me do that. And he's a great researcher, and all the famous research going back to, the early times in Finland and the Turku studies and all that, right?
He's considered the grandfather of xylitol research, and I would actually expand that to the grandfather of, again, non-hexose, non-6 carbon sugar research, because he did do some studies with xylitol. He did do the original studies with erythritol, and he has looked at the way. I mean, he was the first one that actually he worked with. I think it was in, I want to say, Thailand, where they looked at how just utilizing xylitol stopped the progression of oral cancer. So he's looked at xylitol preventing tooth decay, plaque, erythritol, and oral cancer.
Yeah, oral cancer is something I've been working on, but not just oral cancer. Actually, we've been working on breast cancer and malignant melanomas. And Seema, I know you want us to spell. What do you
Please.
want us to spell?
She wants us to spell please. Pleas. You spelled it right.
I told you he was sarcastic. I think maybe you meant, was it Dr. Makinen? Was it for Dr. Makinen? Yeah, Makinen.
Kaulko. Makinen.
Yeah, Dr. Makinen. He's
You want
very
his email
famous
address
researcher.
and his phone number? No, I'm kidding.
Don't give out his cell number. He hates that. But there's other researchers too. We had Soderling and Isaac Canis. They did a lot of research showing how the xylitol prevented the transmission of mutant streptococci from mother to child. And then later they did the research showing how it really reduced the caries rate by 71 to 73% 5 years later. I mean, this is stuff that is better than anything we have in preventive dentistry. You're supposed to say yes.
Well, I was, but you froze up.
I froze? No, I'm not frozen. It might be cold here in Chicago, but we're not freezing yet.
I don't know of anything else in the marketplace today that works better at preventing tooth decay than xylitol does. And, you know, something that I would like to point out is that xylitol and fluoride, because the biggest pushback we get from dental professionals is, we have fluoride, why do we need xylitol? And the thing is that they work completely differently. They do not, they're synergistic. They don't work. I mean, you know, all that fluoride does is fluoride works to remineralize your enamel. It does nothing to stop the bacterial infection. And that's really what xylitol does. And I use the analogy and I tell this story, you know, if you think of your tooth as a castle sitting on a hill, and, you know, it's strong, it's made of stone, and you have this army of bacteria down here at the bottom of the hill, and they're using their catapults and their trebuchets, and they're making this acid, and they shoot it up there at your castle wall, and these acid bombs are dissolving your teeth. All the fluoride does is it's like sending a mason out to repair that castle wall. That's all it is. But if you use xylitol, you're actually getting rid of the bacteria that are creating the acid. So if you ask, yeah,
it's almost time. It's almost time for us to wrap it up. And we're out of time, dude. You got to put a couple more quarters in the machine.
Oh, yeah. I don't have any quarters.
Oh, yeah, the quarters. Okay. Hey, so this has been a great conversation with my friend Nate Jones. And Nate, thank you so much for spending the time with us tonight. Here's the CE code. Now, remember, our next Fireside Chat is on January 18th. We'll be talking a little bit more about nasal hygiene. On February 1st, our guest will be Dr. Irina Trostman, who is the director of the Sleep Medicine Center at Children's Hospital in Chicago. At my hospital, she'll be talking about You Snooze, You Lose, diagnosis with pediatric sleep medicine. And then also March 8th, we have none other than Dr. Alan Reisinger, who'll be talking about the whole body approach to healthcare. And then April 5th, we'll have Dr. Tom Neighbors and I talking about the latest in oral diagnosis. We got great speakers coming up here. And of course, we have March 23rd with Dr. Robert Philibert with Cardio Diagnostics. So stay tuned. Thank you all for coming with and joining us tonight for our Fireside Chat. Keep warm. Nate, my friend, thank you so much.
Anytime. Thank you.
It's been great. And thank you all for.
I do think if you have a minute, which we can go over 1 minute, I actually would like to hear the answer to Karen Versamak.
Oh, there it goes. I haven't seen that one.
Because I think this is actually a really good question, because I'm not a huge fan of utilizing antibiotics, and one of my kids has never used antibiotics in her life. The other one has probably used them a total of 3 days. Even when the doctor prescribes them, I'm like, okay, cut it. I'm not saying this. I shut up. Shut up. But you know, antibiotics should be as used as scarcely as possible. And this is my opinion. And I'm not an educated professional. I've spent millions of dollars in the school of hard knocks, funding research, a number of different studies. We have studies going on in the UK right now. We have studies going on in Pakistan. I mean, Mark Cannon knows we've funded some studies there. But I'm not a fan of the overutilization of antibiotics, but I'm a huge fan of utilizing them intelligently. Okay. I believe there is a time and a place for most of the pharmaceuticals that we have. I just think that as a country and a community, we're heavily over medicated. So the question is regarding bacterial testing. When do you recommend the use of antibiotics? I'm not a doctor, so I never recommend them. And the use of prebiotics, I wouldn't say that I have a favorite one. And this is something that I learned from Mark, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you should have a favorite prebiotic or probiotic, because if you use one brand of probiotic, then you're going to be narrowing your microbiome. And so if you're going to use probiotics, utilize a whole wide variety of them, and just rotate through them.
Yeah, that's for overall health. I mean, Derek Mafabe came up with that many years ago. That if you, as yourself as a person, took the same probiotic constantly, you'd be absolutely actually doing yourself harm over a period of time, because you don't know which probiotic you actually need. You're making an assumption because our testing mechanisms are not good enough until very recently, where we have the ability to see exactly which bacteria you're missing. Remember, the idea of probiotics is to replace the bacteria you're missing. And again, at Northwestern University at the medical school, we have limited the use of antibiotics to being sparingly. You use it when you absolutely need to use an antibiotic. Right now, they say the biggest overusers of antibiotics at this time are now, sadly, the dental profession, because the physicians have reportedly cut back enough that we're now the biggest overusers of antibiotics. But we are over time. And I want to thank you all for coming. Nate, smile. There you go, Nate. Yeah, there you go. Thank you so very much for joining us and joining my friend Nate and I as we have had a very frank conversation about xylitol. Thanks, Jillian. Thank you all very much